Hey fellas, well, it's a time again. Following up on a previous tutorial I did, had had a little over a year ago on why Digimon on the 2002 movie, which some people now claiming is an actually unconventional one, and you are free to do so. At the same time, maybe you guys should sit this one out because I legitimately not hold a good name to dispute this one was English does are reduced, who's is not only coming up with its own issues, always exacerbating one's material. I can argue that it's like the Digimon equivalent of like the 4Kids One Piece stuff. It is that bad. So here we go with why Digimon the movie is a cinematic disaster. Let's get started. This is the single biggest problem with this movie's editing. It combines three different other films with very different styles and tones into a single one. It just does not work at all. I mean, this will be discussed on the other points. Apparently, Jeff Nimoy, one of the main writers of English dub, actually warned the producers that this wasn't be a good idea, but they told him he basically had no say in the matter. Had her, and this will be discussed more in her in the other points of the video. So let's keep going. This dub is basically something of what TV Tropes calls an unintentional period piece. In fact, that's another major flaw with this one, where being able to tell when a work is made is not a bad thing in and of itself. I've argued before that being quote unquote before one's time is not a valid critique with me. That just because something was made before I was born rather than during or after does not preclude me from enjoying it, nor does it preclude me from criticizing it either. I mean, with that being the case, it's it's a lot of whole references as to things like AOL, how which is more dated than like that Tom Hanks Meg Ryan movie he made, as well as a soundtrack featuring stuff like Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, which I barely remember at all. Oh man, and as for the use of Fatboy Slim, personally, if I want to see a Fox movie where the music was playing, I had no idea what was going on at all. I'd be watching Moulin Rouge, who's mean, and the problems, as I just mentioned, only going to get worse with this movie from here on out, folks. This OVA was essentially the pilot episode of the Digimon Adventure series in Japan, used to sell it to potential buyers. And in its original Japanese dub, it's probably my favorite version, a favorite part of this movie, and that to an extent holds true here. Where it's basically kind of like a small scale My Neighbor Totoro, but if there were kaiju fights in it as well, I mean, and trying to jam this into the movie's context does not do it justice at all, man. Well, it's, I mean, and it also doesn't help. It also contains the other issues I mentioned. I mean, like a chicken coop in an apartment building. I mean, heck, a zoning board here can barely allow chickens, let alone own on how people might react at in Japan with its usual real estate. And this is definitely the first instance of the movie trying to turn the dub trying to turn the movie into something it wasn't, and it also is not going to be the last either. And this is another one instance of how even a potentially interesting concept is not taking advantage of this movie, like how our war game, like I know a lot of people are into the story, but it just, in the context of this film at least, does not work for me at all, man. All sense it feels like this could have been a story on its own had it not, how in the War Japan had not just been shoved into when this movie like someone trying to fit the square peg around hole with a sledgehammer. This is actually a sentiment shared by Morrisfield himself, who basically took elements of the story and remade it into Summer Wars, which, in my honest view, is a much better movie. I keep telling people, if you want a good, quote unquote, adult Tekken Digimon, go watch that instead, man. Head sense. And even the whole Omnimon situation doesn't really work for me, and even the 2020 reboot, which will be mine for another day for all its faults, even that I feel, even if it still kind of blew its stack too early, really did that story better than this movie did. I mean, again, I didn't see this growing up, so I have no attachment of it to go on, which is going to become very apparent for the last segment I'm going to be addressing before I get into the last couple. Oh, surrounding this movie. I have maintained this before, and I shall continue to do so. The problem with the Hurricane Touchdown segments in any language, it's not its lack of hurricanes or touchdowns. The problem is that it's just straight up bad, man. I mean, and it's not a great movie, it's original dub, but it was made worse by the fact that they reduced its runtime by two thirds, jammed it in the third act of this movie and tried to use a Willis character who was not a previous part of either of the stories. He's as part of this one. I mean, a lot of you have probably seen the Whiplash clip that people have gotten, and and it's just a key example of how this should not have been approached the way it was at all. Man, people say that they don't dub things like this anymore. Well, I submit maybe there's a good reason why they don't. I'm not one of those people to get into the whole subbing versus dubbing debate. It doesn't make much sense to me when you have both official and unofficial subs, DVDs and Blu-rays, as well as online streams, games in multiple languages. As mean, but the point stands is this. It doesn't. I don't care how many pop songs you try and jam in there either, or how many times you try and have someone sing All Star. It's not going to improve the rating one bit to do so. Oh, and it definitely left a taste that lingered hurt for quite a bit afterward. Yeah. Yeah, this might be a symptom of the movie's problems, but it's certainly not the cause. I honestly don't know if the image war post about the guy's parents breaking up because they didn't do research is real, but it's on its own merit, it's just not a good short at all, man. Say what you will about those short films that accompany the first few Pokemon movies. They may have been often trippy nonsense, but at least they were trippy nonsense that was consistent with what that was being also how you paid your ticket for. Or even the show that this was airing from, I never particularly cared for growing up. They were barely tolerable when they were on Kablam, but when they actually got their own show, oh, it just became like filler to me in between episodes of Beast Machines and Power Rangers. There's man, Well, guess it's time to pull something else out and also wrap this up because there is one factor I will submit this movie did have a lingering impact, and as you've been following along this video, it wasn't a good one. So, long story short, this movie didn't make much money, honey, when it came out. As I point out, not a lot of people liked it at the time. time, and it took over a decade before the franchise would even attempt to release another movie theatrically in the States again, man. And I mean, and granted, it, and it, and it did, the series did survive on TV with Tamers, which is my favorite season to this day. Hey, but at the same time, in these early formative years of the series, when his fans, varied as their opinions may be, hello, have did taste bitterness there. I mean, uh, a lot of us knew in our own ways that it could easily go back to a place of a less than stellar adaptation, and oh boy, as I'm contemplating doing other videos on, we were not prepared when it did, man. I mean, this movie's his failure uh, as an adaptation of Digimon and as moving on its own era, it's a key reason why I think it's definitely been in the shadow of other series of its type. I, as you might notice from as for how I'm behaving, and why I do not think it's the better of the monster series, and I don't think I ever will. Individual incarnations have been able to rise above, but uh, there's been so much variation, and that even other long-run franchises like James Bond and Godzilla would probably be looking at this one going like, yeah, no. Oh, so and hence why a lot of people, myself included, just moved on to experiment with other stuff. I mean, I probably am not going to be watching this movie again anytime soon. And in short, that is why I Digimon the Movie from 2000 is a cinematic disaster. With this, I'd say I've earned my next Hawkeye episode tomorrow. And this year has been something of a slight step forward over the last one. But it's clear we're still going to be facing a lot of challenges ahead of us, and we need to be ready for them. That'll be all for now, and I'll see you tomorrow, the 11th of December, with my next Hawkeye vlog. Take care, everyone.